Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to Q&A, the show where I take your questions from YouTube and Twitter and answer them here in video format. A lot to get into. First thing we're going to get into isn't a question, but it's just something that's popped up and I feel like everybody wants to talk about it. And it's this news that broke, I think it was on Pat McAfee's podcast. Something that was said in passing is that Baker Mayfield is planning on doing a podcast. And I saw a lot of reactions about this, right? You have the people, the remnants of Baker Wars is still like lingering there. So you have the people who are still in Baker Wars, the hardcore Baker guys going, hey, he gets to tell his side of the story. And then you have the non-Baker people going, why is he doing this, right? And my reaction to this is something that I'm just going to be a little bit more hopeful on. Look, I hope none of those groups are right. I hope this does not become him throwing people under the bus and blaming people for certain things. And look, even if that is the case, it's not helpful for him to verbalize that right now because the NFL does not look at him as if he was not the problem, right? They look at him as if he was the problem, right? They look at the roster, they look at the players around him, they look at the play of Odell once he left, and they think, well, Baker's the problem, right? And it's kind of validated because the Browns have opted to replace Baker Mayfield, right? So I hope the approach that he and his camp takes is one of self-awareness, right? Because I think that would go a long way, and I think that could actually help him out, right? If he does this podcast and he says, look, I understand how things have been handled, have been a little bit weird, have been a little bit rocky, and I could have done a lot better on my part and, taken a lot more blame. And I've reflected throughout this whole situation, and it's really humbled me, and really comes out with that kind of a message. I do think this can go a long way in helping him rehabilitate how he is seen throughout the league, right? Like that will actually be a positive thing for him. I don't know what it does for his trade value. It still probably does nothing for his trade value, but it might do something for, goodwill, right? And he needs goodwill right now. He has no goodwill with GMs right now. Nobody wants to spend anything to get him or risk anything to get him. So he needs to do something that shows some goodwill to other front offices, because right now it's just not like that, and openly beefing with your front office is just not going to help you in that situation. So that's kind of what I hope happens. I'm going to be honest with you. The timing of this happening right before OTAs is not promising for that, right? This seems like he's going to pair this podcast with him not showing up to OTAs and holding out and kicking and screaming. And I really just hope he does not choose that approach, because I could care less about his trade value at this point. Like, honestly and seriously, I could care less. Like, they're going to get rid of him one way or the other. I've accepted that reality. The trade value means nothing to me. But what does mean something to me is, I do want to see this guy have a actual NFL career outside of Cleveland, because he's good enough to have an NFL career outside of Cleveland. And the more he does the kicking and screaming and the public post and, just handling this not like any other quarterback has ever handled this situation in the league, whether you think it's fair or not, or you can defend it or not, this is just the truth. No other quarterback is handling these situations like this in the public eye like Baker Mayfield has, and it's not doing him a whole lot of good right now. And I just hope he realizes that and handles this well, because I don't want to see a talented player talk themselves out the league simply because they refuse to be self-aware at a certain point, because he should be in the league. But I'm just worried because I've seen what his camp has done, and I'm not saying this is self-destructive for his personal self. I'm pretty sure he's healthy there, but this seems self-destructive towards his career. Everything that he has done, it just hasn't been helpful, and I hope that he does something to mitigate that. And maybe this podcast can change that if he just takes some blame, shows some humility, and comes off as, I hate to say it, an adult in this whole situation, and it isn't worried about coming out on top or making the team look bad, because that's just not something people are going to want, because teams are going to look at that if he does it and say, man, what if it goes wrong with me and him? Is he going to do the same stuff, right? It's like if you see somebody, I hate to use a relationship analogy, but if you see somebody who online, they do nothing but trash their ex, right? That's all they do is talk all this mess about the ex and they trash him. It makes you not want to date that person because it's like, man, if we break up, is this what you're going to do? Like, you're not going to handle this? You're going to trash my name and you're going to do all this stuff? You can't just handle this maturely. And that's what Baker Mayfield's doing right now. It's a breakup, bro. Like, he got to stop posting about us. And I hope that he stops posting about us. And maybe this is going a long way towards making that happen. So I'm going to take the optimistic approach there, but that's my thoughts, my 2 cents on that whole Baker Mayfield podcast thing. I'm sure you heard pop up. Now let's get into the questions. First question is going to be from Tilted, who says this: do you think Watson's arm is going to force defenses to clear the box and open things up for us to have a pair of 1,000-yard rushers with Chubb or Hunt? Or since he is so good at picking apart defense, will we utilize the run game less and resulting in decreased productivity from our backs? You know, you bring up an interesting point, and I think the answer is a little bit of both, right? Will Chubb and Hunt have more carries than they had last year? I don't think so. I think they either get the same amount of carries or less. Will their productivity go up? It depends on how you view productivity. If you view productivity in overall numbers, they might be, I think, at the same number, but at a more efficient clip. And what I mean by that is, I think their yards per carry numbers are going to go up. Their touchdowns are going to go up, right? Like, those things are going to go up. The efficiency numbers will go up. The overall numbers might end up staying the same, but when those efficiency numbers are high, that's when you see how good a player is when you're watching it, right? When you're like, oh my God, the impact that this player has is incredible, because every time you see them touch the ball, they're getting 6 to 7 yards, right? Instead of what happened last year where, yeah, Nick Chubb had similar productivity on a per run basis that he had last year, but it didn't feel the same because you saw him take a lot of 2-yard losses or 2-yard runs, and it wasn't as efficient as it's been in years past. So no, the number of carries won't go up. I don't think you'll get 2,000-yard rushers. I don't think the overall numbers are going to be bigger, but the efficiency of these numbers are going to be bigger, and efficiency leads to winning, especially on offense. So that is my take on that. Let me know what you think. The next question comes from Mike, who says, who do you expect the Browns to release or let go due to cap issues next season, after, if they even have cap issues? Now this could be wrong, right? But I just try to pay attention to how Andrew Berry moves, and look at some of the things that he does. When you're talking about a good player, right? Not just like a regular player, but like a really good player that Andrew Berry might have to move off on. It seems that past examples and current examples show that he always has a backup plan, and he plans a couple of years ahead of this, right? Drafting Greg Newsome, yes, they needed another corner, but that was also kind of a plan to, hey, if we cannot keep Denzel Ward at the number that we want to keep him at, we'll let him walk. We'll just promote Greg Newsome, and then also have A.J. Green III there to step up if we can't keep Greedy Williams or something like that, right? So I think Denzel is likely on his way out. I don't think the Browns are going to come to where he wants to on money, and they're going to let him go because they have a replacement plan. I also think the same thing is going to happen to Jack Conklin. If you look at how they have structured this roster, and again, AB has a pattern here, right? We saw this with Nick Harris and J.C. Treader, Odell and Anthony Schwartz. You know, we might see it with Demetric Felton and one of the running backs, right? Like, this looks like how AB moves. When he drafts a position that's not necessarily a need, it kind of opens your eyes to, oh, okay, he's starting to think about the future here and replacing some of these guys in the future. AB don't do much by accident. He is very pragmatic with his approach, and that pragmatic approach tells me that Denzel Ward, look, the number that they think they want to keep him at is unlikely to be the number that he wants to stay at. So I would expect that this might be the last year Denzel Ward might be a Cleveland Brown. The next question comes from Effect Crank, who says, who is your favorite wide receiver in the draft? And that we can attain in the second or third. Christian Watson is my favorite wide receiver. I like his athleticism, his size, and his skill set and his experience, right? Coming out of North Dakota State, it's basically a zone option offense, basically an NFL offense, right? Where you're under center. A lot of the times the wide receivers are blocking. It's a very physical offense and a very physical football program they run there at North Dakota State. He's somebody who can excel at blocking, is a really strong blocker at the position, and somebody who knows how to run the 6 routes that you're going to have to run from the X receiver position. And he also has 4.33 speed. That's something to give you insurance of, hey, if Anthony Schwartz does not work out and he cannot be an NFL wide receiver, maybe we can transition him into a special teams guy and move that X receiver position to a guy like Christian Watson. And if Anthony Schwartz does work out, then you have 2 gadget guys you can put on both sides of the field. Win-win, right? So that's who I would want. The next question comes from Racer, who says, if the Browns don't draft any defensive tackles, what will they do on the interior defensive line? Pray that Tommy Togiai and Jordan Elliott actually become good. Jordan Elliott, look, it's been 2 years with Jordan. I'm starting to lose faith that he's going to become a starting level defensive tackle, especially since he has been beaten out by like 3 other players, and one of them that was cut during the middle of the season. So I don't know what to do with Jordan Elliott at this point. The other player, Tommy Togiai, I like Tommy, but I think Tommy's a rotational defensive tackle. I don't think he's big enough to be on the line 3 downs. I would hope that they draft defensive tackles. If they don't, they're probably going to do the 1-year deal veteran thing and just sign a bunch of vets and see what they can do there. The next question comes from Sergio, who says, what do you think our record will be if Watson gets suspended 6 to 8 games and Perce has to step in? You think this would be another wasted year at the roster due to Watson's suspension? This is an interesting question, right? Because there is a potential suspension that could be looming with Deshaun Watson. Obviously, we know the situation. 22 civil cases are pending right now. And look, if he gets suspended for 6 to 8 games, the Browns are going to have to hold it down, right? You're going to want to be, at worst, 1 game under 500. You probably want to be 500. And if you can get there over 500, that's gravy, right? But that's where you want to be. And also, we can't just assume that Deshaun Watson is going to come off an 8-game suspension or 6-game suspension if he is suspended and play at the highest level. So, we can't just say, oh, they're going to win out, right? That would be a lot to ask out of Watson. So, they're going to have to see what they can do. But with Perce, if it's 6 games, I feel confident it gets to 3-3. 4 games, 8 games, though, that's a little different, right? So it's all going to depend on that. And again, I told y'all in the last video, just be prepared. This Watson suspension thing, it's going to linger. It's going to linger, and it's going to be weird because this is what the NFL does. They're not just going to come out and suspend him. They're going to make this thing linger. It might linger into the year. And again, this is something we have to anticipate, right? Because we're right now assuming that if the NFL suspends Watson, it's going to be at the beginning of the year. This might not happen till the end of the year, right? They might let Watson start the season, continue their investigation, and decide 5 weeks into the season that Watson is suspended and then suspend him for 8 games in the middle of the season, right? This is something that is well within the NFL's track record of happening here. He might not get suspended this year. He might not get suspended ever. He might get suspended next year. I have no idea what to expect here, but I don't think this is just going to be something where we're going to know, maybe in July what they're going to do with Watson. I just don't think that that's how the NFL is going to handle it. They don't have a good track record of this. We've been through this with Josh Gordon so many times that I would expect this thing to be very stupidly handled by the league's office when it comes to the timetable of this. So just prepare yourselves that this is going to be very weird, and we're going to make multiple videos about the league not making up their mind on whether they want to suspend him or not. And it might linger into the season. You heard it here first. Next question comes from Chili Dog, who says, just curious, why did I switch my video uploads from 7 a.m.? Because I do almost double the viewer numbers if I upload at 6 p.m. or 5 p.m. rather than 7 a.m. Don't worry, during the season, there will be 7 a.m. uploads. There will probably also be 5 p.m. uploads. I'll just probably be doing double the work during the season, which is fine to me. But that's why the 7 in the morning early uploads have kind of gone away, just because it's been a lot more people see the videos when they're uploaded after work, right? After 5. So that's one thing that the algorithm has helped me figure out. So that's why these videos have changed upload times. Next question comes from Shadow Strife, who says, if Jordan Davis falls to say the mid-20s, should the Browns move heaven and earth to trade up, even if that means giving up most of our picks this year? It would be worth it to keep him out of Pittsburgh alone. It would be worth it to keep him out of Pittsburgh alone. I am not trying to live in a world where the Pittsburgh Steelers have TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, and Jordan Davis with Cam Hayward. Yeah, I'm not trying to live in that world. Right? So yeah, it would be worth it just to keep him away from Pittsburgh, because if Pittsburgh sees this man, as big as he is, as athletic as he is, they will draft him. They will absolutely draft him, unless like Malik Willis is there. They're going to do it. And I don't think Malik Willis is going to be there. So, yeah, if he does it, it would be worth it, whatever you got to move, just to keep him out of Pittsburgh. The next question comes from Jonah, who says, do you see Grant Delpit taking a step this year in the defense? I hope so, right? If he does, this can be the difference from this defense being really good to, almost historically good. Having a hybrid guy like him running around at his insane athletic ability and his size, with a JOK, with a Myles Garrett, with the Denzel Ward, with the Greg Newsome, like with the John Johnson III, having that level of really good players on the team, and let's just say you draft 2 good defensive tackles in the draft and you get Jadeveon Clowney back, this starts to become a really historically good defense. And I don't know how many teams have we seen in the NFL in recent memory have historically good defenses and also have an offense that's worth its own salt, which the Browns might have this year. So yeah, it would mean a lot if Grant Delpit could take that step, because I think that would be the thing that makes this overwhelming for other teams to game plan for. The next question comes from Lex, who says, do you think the NFL GMs and owners have decided to make moving Baker Mayfield extremely difficult for us, so we have to eat his contract, especially after setting the new standard for QBs and the fully guaranteed deals? At the end of the day, are the NFL owners and GMs probably being a little bit more petty about this whole Baker Mayfield situation than they need to? Yeah. But here's the truth. If a team wanted Baker Mayfield, their feelings about the Browns giving a new guaranteed contract would not stop them from pursuing a guy that they want. The real thing that's out there is that teams are not interested in Baker Mayfield more than they're interested in being petty, and that says a lot about how they feel about Baker Mayfield. And that kind of means that this was going to be inevitable, right? Whether the Browns upset the apple cart or not, I don't think people are going to be willing to move off of a lot to get Baker Mayfield because of a lot of the things that have become issues with Baker Mayfield, not necessarily on the field, and not necessarily in a strict off the field aspect, but when it comes to his presence in the building, people fear that he might be a headache, and people don't like to trade for headaches, especially when they feel like it's going to be a headache in the locker room. It just is what it is, especially if you're not like a Hall of Fame level player. It got like this with T.O. sometimes, right? And T.O. was a Hall of Famer, first ballot. And it still got like that with him. Baker Mayfield, I like him. I think he's going to be a good quarterback. I don't think he's going to be a great quarterback. But, he don't got that sway. So that's an issue for him. But that's the questions for this week. I want to thank you guys for asking these questions. Y'all have a great day and have a good night.